They laughed when she first stepped into the room, quiet, unsure, and clearly not what they expected. She didn't dress like them, didn't speak like them, and she certainly didn't play by their rules. To them, she was a joke, an easy target to ridicule. Whispers followed her everywhere. "She's not cut out for this," they said. "She'll crack under pressure." But what they didn't see was what lay beneath her calm silence: grit, fire, and a quiet determination that had been building for years. From day one, she was underestimated. They gave her the scraps, the leftovers, the assignments no one else wanted. They watched, waiting for her to fail. But every task she completed with quiet precision. Every obstacle they threw in her path only sharpened her focus. She didn't respond with anger or complaints. She let her work speak. And slowly, very slowly, the fear began to shift. Not in her, but in them. Because something was changing. She began rising. One success led to another, and her name, once followed by snickers, now made people pause. The same people who mocked her were now watching, unsure, uneasy. She no longer walked in silence. She walked with purpose. And behind her eyes was something they couldn't quite place, something they were right to fear. They had mistaken her quiet for weakness. They had no idea they were feeding a storm. Now, she's not just here to prove a point. She's here to lead, to rise, and to show them that mocking her abilities was their greatest mistake. But just as everything seems to fall into place, a single unexpected move changes everything. What happens next? No one saw coming. Her name is Maya. A name most of them didn't bother to remember at first. To them, she was just another new face, quiet, polite, always staying out of the spotlight. But what no one knew was that Maya had already been through more than most of them could imagine. She didn't come from privilege, didn't have powerful connections, and nothing was ever handed to her. Every skill she had, every step she climbed, came from struggle, long nights, closed doors, rejection, but she never gave up. Years ago, she had tried to break into the same world, once before. Back then, she was full of hope and excitement. But she was pushed out, dismissed, told she wasn't good enough. That experience changed her. It didn't break her, but it made her sharper. She studied harder, worked twice as much, learned things in silence, while others were too busy showing off. So when she came back, she wasn't the same girl they had overlooked. She was prepared, but she didn't want revenge, at least not then. Still, the mocking returned. The whispers in hallways, the fake smiles in meetings. They thought they could still control the narrative. They had no idea she was already steps ahead. Every insult, every little sabotage, they only added fuel. But Maya didn't react. She watched, she listened, she waited. But then something happened. A decision made behind closed doors. One that pushed her limits and forced her hand. A project stolen, credit taken, a trap set just for her. And just like that, the line was crossed. Now, the calm she carried is starting to crack. Not out of weakness, but because something powerful is waking up inside her. And the ones who laughed, they're about to realize what happens when Maya stops holding back. The room felt colder after that meeting. Maya sat still, staring at the screen in front of her, the stolen presentation now flashing with someone else's name. Her ideas, her research, her weeks of sleepless nights, gone in a moment. Taken by someone who smiled at her every morning. Daniel, one of the rising stars in the company, always loud, always charming, and always watching for shortcuts. He had seen Maya's work and decided it would look better with his name on it. She wanted to confront him right there, but something held her back. Not fear, strategy. Maya knew calling him out without proof would make her look bitter, emotional, maybe even jealous. That's how the game was played here. Quiet ambition got ignored, loud deception got rewarded. And now, everyone was congratulating him for something he didn't even understand. But Maya wasn't the only one who noticed. In the background, another story was unfolding. Leah, a junior analyst who had always admired Maya's quiet strength, had overheard a key conversation. Daniel bragging in the break room, too confident to stay silent. She didn't say anything then, but it planted a seed. And then there was Arjun, one of the senior developers who'd been around long enough to see how patterns repeated and how talent often got buried under politics. He had seen what Maya had built, and something about this situation didn't sit right with him. While Maya gathered quiet proof, emails, timestamps, and old drafts, the whispers began to shift again. Not about her, about him. The same people who mocked her now started watching her closely, unsure of what she might do next. The system was designed to silence people like Maya, but this time it might not be enough. And the worst part, Daniel still thought he'd won days past, but Maya's silence became heavier. Not the silence of defeat, but the kind that makes people nervous. The office buzzed with fake cheer and careful small talk, but under it all was a growing tension. Something was coming, and everyone could feel it, even Daniel, though he wouldn't admit it. He was too busy riding the high of praise, shaking hands with upper management, preparing to present his breakthrough at the upcoming investor meeting. He didn't know that every move was being watched now, every word being recorded, not just by Maya, but by the few who had started to question the truth. Leah had quietly handed Maya the recording from the break room, Daniel casually laughing about how some people are too quiet to protect their own work. That one clip changed everything, and Arjun, who had seen enough betrayal over the years, offered Maya access to archive system logs, the ones that showed who last edited what and when. Bit by bit, the picture was coming together. But Maya wasn't rushing. She was building something. Not a scene, a statement. As the investor meeting drew near, so did the pressure. Everyone expected Daniel to deliver. The spotlight was already set, and the presentation had been scheduled as the key pitch of the quarter. Management had bet on him, and Maya, still in the background, still working late, still saying little. But behind that quiet exterior, every detail was being prepared for a moment no one saw coming. The night before the event, Daniel walked past Maya's desk and gave her that same smug smile, the one he wore when he thought he had the upper hand. He didn't know. The very stage he was about to stand on was the one she was about to turn against him. The morning of the investor meeting arrived like a storm waiting to break. Everyone was on edge, suits pressed, smiles rehearsed, the atmosphere thick with expectation. Daniel stood by the conference entrance, confidently scrolling through his slides one last time. His pitch, Maya's pitch, had been rehearsed to perfection, or so he thought. But across the room, Maya wasn't where she was expected to be. She wasn't in the tech booth or assisting like she usually did. She was gone, missing. The whispers began again, this time more curious and cruel. Some said she had quit. Others thought she'd backed down. Even Daniel looked slightly rattled, checking the hallway more than once. But the truth was, Maya hadn't walked away. She had moved deeper, right into the core of everything. What no one knew was that Maya had scheduled a silent submission of her own, an anonymous tip sent to the board just hours before the presentation. It included digital proof of her original designs, time-stamped drafts, emails, and Lee's recording. But the twist came when Maya discovered something buried in those logs, something Daniel hadn't meant to reveal. He hadn't just stolen her idea. He had been accessing restricted systems using someone else's login, someone at the top. It wasn't just plagiarism anymore. It was bigger, fraud. The kind that could collapse trust, tank investments, and pull executives into the fallout. And now Maya had a choice: expose him completely and risk setting the company on fire, or wait. But before she could act, a message pinged her inbox. No sender, just one line. Asterisk, be careful what you reveal. Not all snakes hide in the grass. Asterisk. The betrayal wasn't over. Someone else was involved. And Maya wasn't just fighting Daniel anymore. She was up against something much more powerful. The room went quiet as Daniel took the stage, lights focused, eyes locked on him. Investors leaned in, ready to hear the pitch that was supposed to seal the company's next big deal. He spoke with confidence, pacing like he owned the place, walking everyone through the vision, Maya's vision, slide by stolen slide. But halfway through his presentation, the screen behind him flickered, just once, barely noticeable. Then it happened again. This time, the title on the slide glitched. Daniel's name replaced by Maya's for a single second, then switched back. A few people in the crowd frowned, confused. Backstage, Maya stood with a quiet breath, watching the playback delay. She hadn't intended to do it this way. She wanted to keep it clean, professional. But after the anonymous warning, she knew she couldn't wait. Someone higher up was protecting Daniel, and they were willing to play dirty. So she made a choice. Show the truth, not just to management, not just to the board, but to everyone. Midway through Daniel's final slide, the screen cut to black. A video began to play. Not planned, not rehearsed. First, Maya's original prototype sketches, then timestamps, code commits, screenshots, and finally, the recording of Daniel bragging. The room fell dead silent, faces froze, and Daniel? He stood motionless, blinking, caught under the weight of his own arrogance. Then, a second shock. Emails leaked in real time from the higher-up Maya had suspected. The same executive who had quietly given Daniel access. His name popped up at the bottom of the screen, followed by a wave of gasps from the audience. Security was called. The meeting collapsed into chaos. Investors pulled out. Daniel was escorted out of the building, and the executive, gone before the fallout hit. But as Maya left the room, calm and quiet as ever, her phone buzzed. A message. No name. Just 4 words. You weren't the only one. The game wasn't over. It had only just begun. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, investigations, and apologies. Maya stayed quiet through most of it, letting the evidence speak where words would have fallen short. The executive who had protected Daniel resigned quietly, his name left out of official statements but whispered through every hallway. Daniel's contract was terminated, and the company launched a full audit. Trust had been broken, and it would take time to rebuild. But change had started. Maya never wanted revenge. What she wanted was recognition, fairness, a place where work spoke louder than politics. And though it didn't come easy, it came. Leadership finally acknowledged her contributions, not with grand gestures, but with something real. Her name on the next product, her seat at the decision table, and most importantly, a shift in how voices like hers were heard. People who used to overlook her now leaned in when she spoke, and those who had quietly supported her, like Lee and Arjun, were no longer in the shadows. The mysterious message she received lingered in her mind. She never found out who sent it, but it reminded her that the fight for truth is never one person's burden. Somewhere out there, others were navigating the same silence, the same doubt. And maybe, because of her, they'd start to speak up too. Maya walked out of the building one evening as the sun dipped low behind the skyline, casting everything in gold. She'd have faced betrayal, manipulation, and injustice, but she had also proven something powerful. That no matter how many people try to silence you, truth has a way of finding the light. And those who once mocked her, they now remembered her name, not with laughter, but with respect.